Hi, in this lesson, we'll go over the basics of debugging. Debugging can be like playing Where's Waldo. You're looking for something small, something that isn't quite right in a big program. The first step in debugging is attention to detail. The smallest syntax error can be the source of the problem, even something as small as a typo. Paying attention to detail means zooming in on your code line by line and looking for small errors, such as typos in variable names or function names, syntax errors in function definitions, if statements, and loops, and checking for accidental mix-ups. Maybe you made a copy and paste error and forgot to update a variable or a parameter. The second thing to consider when debugging is to question your assumptions. Sometimes the thing we are so sure can't be the source of the problem actually is. It's important to question everything. We also need to keep in mind that the computer is just doing what we told it to do. If the program doesn't run as expected, the problem is probably in our code and not in the computer. In this example, we might assume that our draw square function is correct, but when we run it, it's not working. To debug, we should question our function and check our post condition. What in our function definition isn't getting Tracy to end where we want her to end? In this example, we need to tell Tracy to repeat the commands 4 times instead of 3, 1 for each side of the square. When it comes to debugging, most bugs can be simple fixes, especially if we run our code often and catch bugs early. 2 things to keep in mind. First, tricky bugs often have simple sources. Sometimes we search and search and search our code to find that we were just missing a parentheses. And second, double, triple, quadruple check your code. Debugging is just part of the programming process, so you should do it regularly as part of your programming routine. Let's head to the editor to debug a program together. Here we are in the editor, and this is the program where we have Tracy draw a circle of beads. Let's see what happens when we run our program. Rats. We get an error message. So it's telling us that something is wrong with line 17. So let's go ahead and zoom in on line 17. Take a second and pause the video to see if you can find the error. All right, if you said that we're missing parentheses around the 36, you're exactly right. So something as small as parentheses can trip up our program. So now when I run our program, let's see if it works. Oh great, so our program ran just like we wanted it to. However, it doesn't look quite like we want it to look. And so this is telling us that there's something a little bit off in our code. In terms of the making beads, it looks like Tracy is making beads exactly the way that we want her to, right? So I think our function here is probably good. Let's zoom in on our for loop to see what it might be missing. So for I in range 36, so we know that this is correct, right? That's working. We want it to do 36 times. We're telling her to make a bead, and then we're telling Tracy to turn left 15. Let's go back and look at our exercise description to see if there's something we may have missed. All right, 36 beads, that's why we're repeating 36 times. Each bead should have a radius of 10 pixels. Yep, that's looking right. The bracelet must have a diameter of 200. We're going forward and backward 100, which means our radius is 100, which our diameter must be 200. Okay, so all of this looks right. You will need to use a function and a for loop, check. You will need to turn Tracy 10 degrees after drawing each bead. Aha, here we go. So here we're having Tracy turn 15 degrees instead of 10 degrees. So let's go ahead and change this. Let's try one more time and see if that fixes our problem. And there we go. So when it comes to debugging, paying really close attention to syntax is really important. And then sometimes you just have to look line by line and see where you might be a little bit off, getting the computer to do what you want it to do. And now it's your turn to practice debugging some Tracy programs.